Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. Yeah, I'm that face in the corner of your screen. I am going to switch it off because my webinar video doesn't always work. Seems to be. Sorry about that. Okay, let's start that again. So, hello everybody. Welcome so much to this math literacy session with us. I hope you find it useful and handy and something that you can take away with you and use this year. I know I have a feeling this year is just going to be as crazy as 2020, maybe with a better ending. Let's hope. So while we are just giving everyone a moment just to log in, because sometimes, you know, Zoom is so much fun. Why don't you let us know where you're from, what province you're currently living in. I see lots of KZN, some Western Cape. Northern Cape. Thanks, guys. It's nice to have you. And an Eastern Cape. Yay! Lots of KZNs, one from Limpopo. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'll just give it another 10 seconds. I'm going to have one more sip of coffee while you guys are answering this question. Awesome. Okay, wonderful. Thanks, everybody. So in a resounding first, KZN actually has beat out Gauteng in the first of the last 7 webinars, including this one today. So that's pretty exciting. Why don't you do me, okay, so let's pop into the chat function where I sent you that first message. What is your favorite math lit topic? What do you love teaching about math lit? If you're a student who's joining us, what's your favorite math topic or math lit topic that you learn? Hi, Shamaya, thanks. Just pop it into the chat function. Tell me what your favorite math lit topic is. So for me, I really enjoyed setting up the finance. Chantal, data handling, Amelda, that's also awesome. Finance, tax, okay. Madeline, I think you're in the wrong profession. Measurements, volume. Awesome. Ernest says measurements as well. Fantastic. Hello, Christy. Data handling. Awesome, awesome. Thanks, guys. It's always nice. It's can be quite difficult. Dia says, I enjoy all the topics as it's practical. That's awesome. I like that. Yeah, Mathlit is a very practical subject, and it's wonderful. I wish actually that they would combine it with LO, because I feel like even the math students should know how to do their tax. But hey, let me not rock the boat too much this morning. You can tell I've had 2 cups of coffee because hi Farai. Yeah, I'm full of nonsense this morning. All right, wonderful. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Let's look at what we've got planned for today. So I see one more chat before we begin. Michael says he enjoys all the math topics. Look, they're all very nice, I must say. What's the plan for today? I just want to show you where to download the simulator so that if you are doing online lessons, you can take the simulator that we're using today and use it on your online lessons. If you're using it in class, you can project it on the projector. So it's useful for both classroom situations, and now currently with all of the chaos that's going on, you've got an option for both. And the nice thing is, but I'll get to that. Let's just look through our plan of action for today. And then of course, all of the math stuff, the numbers and calculations, we're gonna look at rounding off. We're gonna look at all the finance, and there were so many people who just wanted to go through tax. So I've put together a section on tax. I'll show you a really nice present value investigation that you can show your students. Hire purchase we'll go through as well. And then of course, measurement with conversions and time, because I feel like a lot of people struggle with the time situation, and particularly with Mathlit. Those students really, I mean, can you imagine you can't teach a pure math student sex decimal or time calculations. Can you imagine trying to teach a Mathlit student? So we'll go through a very nice shortcut for that. And then of course, how to do data handling on the calculator, and then just a fun roundup with probability as well. Awesome. So the calculator we're going to actually be using today is our ELW506T. And this is a very nice upgrade from the previous one that we used with Mathlet, which was just the W506. And it's just so fantastic for math literacy, as you'll see. So what I've done is I've put this link at the bottom of my PowerPoint presentation. And I just want to show you very quickly how to download it. So we're just going to go across to our internet browser, whatever browser you are using. Okay, and then we're just going to type in www.maths@sharp.co.za. You can see I visit here a lot because I maintain the back end and add all the worksheets, etc. So this is the screen you should see, and I realize now I really should change it from Merry Christmas, but I really don't want to leave Christmas behind at the moment. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's a happy place in 2020. So if we go scroll across, use your arrow keys. Here's your ELW506T, and if you scroll one more, here's your ELW535. So depending on what calculator you want to use, and then just click the download now button. It is free. It's available all the time. And then you'll see I like to save mine on desktop. You can see mine's already saved. So you would just press your save button. I'm not going to do that because I don't need 2 copies. And then what you should see on your desktop, just part of my mess, is the simulator. It will look like the calculator. And if you click it open, it looks like this one here. Okay, so that's just some basics on how to get to the simulator and how to download it. Okay, and you'll see it really does make teaching the maths a lot easier as well. All right, so here's your calculator basics. Just some quick things to note. Your on button, most important thing. Your second function button, so if you press second function on, it will switch it off, and then second function just activates any orange keys that you see on your screen. Then of course you have the alpha button, which is green, and that just activates your stats and your memory keys and your conversions and constants. A mode we'll discuss in a few. BS is for backspace. It's just a delete button. Change will just change the way that your calculation looks, and equals will give you the answer. All right. So we were talking about all the various modes that you can use on the calculator. So this one has 9 different modes, and the ones that we are going to use today would be the normal mode, the stat mode, the table mode, and that is it for today. Okay, and then some of the other functions. Now this is the old W506, so if you've been in a Sharp presentation before, you might have received this one. So it just has about 100 functions less. And it doesn't have the table mode, and you'll see why we love the table mode so much. So the buttons are all very similarly placed and do similar things. And what you'll see is what I've done is I've just put both calculators if both of them can do that function. So the first thing that I want to do with you today is just a really nice shortcut for your class marks. You can see I was prepping this morning on the calculator. So let's say, for example, you have a test that you've set, which is out of 70 marks, and you want to convert all of these marks into a percentage out of 100. So what you're going to do is use your fraction button. At the top of your fraction, we type in 100. At the bottom of your fraction, you type in 70, press your right arrow key, say times, and put your first student's mark in. So say your first student gets 32. And we say equals, and he gets 45, and if we change that, 45,71%. Okay, and you can see I've actually got a recurring function on, and I'll show you how to set that up in a little bit. Okay, now your next student gets, say, 55. So we type in 55, and we press equals, and we get 78,57%. And your next student gets 23, so we press 23 equals, and they get 33% also. Okay, so that is how your shortcut for class marks works. It's really easy. If you have just a basic Sharp calculator, I'm so sorry, I've pressed the wrong thing here. If you just have a basic Sharp calculator, the technique works the same. So what you are converting to, that becomes divided by what your total of your test is, equals times your first mark equals, and then just mark equals until you are done. Now, I was just saying to you that we've actually set up the recurring decimal so that it's already on, but let me show you how to do that for when you get your calculator. So we're going to press second function and math. And then if you press it down, you'll see that number 5 is recurring decimal. So we can press 5 and switch our recurring decimal on. Now, if we had, for example, 85 divided by 9, and we said equal, we get 9 4 nines. And if we did that, do you see it says 9 and 4 with the bar on top? And that's just telling you that 4 is recurring. So it gives you all of the values, just adds an extra loop to your change function if the value is recurring. If it's not recurring, it obviously won't add that recurring state into it. Okay. The next thing is also to change the way your answers are displayed. And this is particularly handy when we're doing finance. And you'll see I did change it. So all of my calculations following this will have this set up. Okay. So what we want to do is go to our editor and we're going to choose 0 for right view. And instead of exact, we're going to use approximate. Now, when we're doing financial calculations, we often have a decimal point and like so. And what it does is it just makes the calculator give us the answer in decimal notation instead of in fraction. But you can still change it back to a fraction if that's something that you want to do. All right, everyone happy? All good. Now, the next thing I think, I'm just going to actually go check. I see everyone is still saying hi. Hi, everybody. Morning. All right, cool. So the next thing that we want to do is set up our rounding off. And again, this is particularly relevant to our finance questions. So we're going to say second function math, and this time we're going to choose 1 for fixed scientific and engineering. And we're just going to fix the number of decimals by pressing 0. And we just choose our number of decimals. So we want 2 decimal places because we're working with rands. Now, if I had like so, you'll see that it automatically rounds that calculation off for me. All right, everyone happy so far? Thanks, Tarai. Okay, awesome, fantastic. Great. So let's go back to my slides so that I know where I'm at. Thanks, Sylvanus. I'm glad to hear that feedback. Okay, so the next thing, before I move on to this, I actually just want to, I don't know if I've added it. Oh, I have added it, don't worry. Okay, so the next thing to look at is your squares and cubes and square roots. Okay, so if we want to find the square of any number, we use this button here. So we can just say 5 squared is equal to 25. And you'll see it will always give me the decimal notation because we've set it to 2 decimal places. We can change it back if you don't like that. So you can say second function and math. And again, we choose 1 for FSE and then 3 for norm. And you'll see now it takes away the decimals and it will just give us a standard answer. If I want to do something cubed, I can say either second function and the cubed function button and press equals, or what I can do is say 3 and use my exponent key and press 3 and equals. Both take the same number of key presses, so it's up to you with what you're comfortable with. What's nice about this option is that you can do exponents higher than 3. But I see in the text documents that I was looking through yesterday, you don't need to know higher than a cube value. So just an FYI. And then of course your square root function is this one here, and you just type in the value you want the square root of and say equals, and there we go. Now you don't have to press that arrow. I just did it so you can actually see what I typed in to the screen of the calculator. Okay. All good so far. Okay, let's look at fractions. Morning, Fanny. Thank you for joining us. Okay, fantastic. Let's look at fractions. So on the calculator, here's your fraction button. We can just press that and we can say 4 bits plus, and then the short version is actually to press your numerator first, then press the fraction button and then say 9 and say equals, and there we go. And you'll see this is a recurring decimal. There it is there. Now, what happens if we have a mixed number notation? Okay, so we can do it two ways. We can put on our whole number first and then press second function fraction and just type in the rest of the fraction. Or we can type in the fraction and then realize we've forgotten our whole number, type it in, and then go back and type in the rest of the fraction as so. Do you see? So it won't multiply that like other calculators do. It will add it as a whole number. And again, you can change to see the various answers. Sure, I've really done a lot of recurring numbers. Good morning, Indiran. All right, awesome, fantastic. Thanks everybody for joining us this morning. Cool. So let's move on to percentages. So there are a lot of calculations that we use percentages for. And let's say, for example, I'm not going to use the one that I did here. Let's say, for example, we're having a sale and the cost of our jeans is 500 Rand because they're fancy jeans. And we're told that we can get 30% off. So we're going to subtract 30%. So we can say minus 30, second function 1, and that will give us our final price. If we want to know how much money we're getting off the jeans, then we can say 500 times 30, second function 1, to give us 150. So that tells me that they've taken 150 Rand off my pair of jeans, and then I can just say 500 minus 150 to get to that final answer. Both ways work, so it's whatever you are comfortable with explaining. I will do VAT when I do the tax, and I'll show you how to work back your VAT as well. Okay, so I just haven't included it here because I'm just doing basics here. The next thing here is your memory key, and you can see on my screen is actually a little m because I haven't cleared that memory away yet. Okay, so let's say we want to save the value 16 into our memory key. So we would just say 16 store into our memory key. So now if we want to check that what our value of m is, we can either just say call m and see, or we can use our memory notation, and you can see I've saved a whole bunch of things in memory and my m value is 16. Okay, we can also add something. So say we're adding totals from different various calculations. So I have another calculation and it's 5 times 10 and my answer is 50. Then I can just press the memory plus button and it will add the 50 to my 16. You want to go check. There we go, it's 66. So that's just the various ways that you can use your memory keys as well. The other thing that comes up a lot is whether we should have a dot or a comma on the calculator. So you can change that setting by going to second function setup and pressing 6 for decimal points, and then just choosing what makes you happy. So it is set up to use a dot first. That's the normal setting, but if you would want a comma, you just press 1 and then you'll see your answers will all be given to you with a comma instead of a decimal. It's really a personal preference thing. It makes absolutely no difference to the value of your calculation as well. Now, the other thing that I want to show you before we move on to the fun math stuff, and by fun I mean the complicated, is just your thousands separators. So I'm just doing this example. Do you see here we have 45 million, and there's your little thousand separator, 690,000, and there's another separator. So you can see exactly how to read the numbers off because it groups them for you automatically. And I used to work with kids who had learning difficulties, and this is something that's quite a critical skill. So if the calculator can separate it out for them, they're much less likely to miss up because they can hold the space with the finger. You can't see me holding my finger, but I'm pressing my finger on the apostrophe, so I can only see the 45. Then I can hold my fingers over the 2. I'm doing it, you just can't see me. Over the 45 and the thousands, and they can see the 690. And then I can hold it over and just see the 3 zeros. So it's a really nice way just for kids who really struggle to read the numbers. Caroline, don't stress, it is recorded. So I will send the link to everybody on Monday where you can watch the recording if you're struggling with your internet connection and you're missing things. Okay, So let's look at our first thing, which is break even. So here, what I've done is I've looked at a cost equation and a profit equation. So let's make up a story. Okay, so we have a lady who's starting out with a bakery, and her fixed cost per month to rent her kitchen equipment or whatever is 500 Rand. And for every item that she makes, it costs her 20 Rand in ingredients. Let's call it a cake. Okay, but every cake that she makes, she earns 40 Rand. So we want to work out when she will start making money. In other words, when does this equation equal that equation? That's essentially what break even is, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our calculator and we're going to go to this wonderful place called table mode. And we're going to type in our cost analysis or our cost equation into our first function. So we're going to say 500 plus 20, and our placeholder or variable, we're just going to use an X. So we're going to press RCL twice. Okay, then we're going to say equals. For function 2, we're going to type in our profit equation. So we're going to say 40, and we're going to make an X. Okay. Here we're going to press equals, and we're going to leave start at 0 and step at 1, and we're going to say equals, equals. And you'll see. So before she's made anything, she's already starting out with a cost of 500 Rand. Here we can see if she makes one cake, her cost is 520 Rand and her profit is 40 Rand. So what we actually want to do is go and look for the point where these two values are equal to each other. So if I just scroll down my table, and you'll see your table is unlimited, which means that you can go for as long as you like without running out of space. And that becomes very handy when we start doing these calculations. Okay, so here is our break-even point. At 25 units, at 25 cakes a month, she will have made broken even. In other words, she will have made the same amount of money that it cost her to make the 25 cakes. Before that, all of this is a loss. And obviously the loss will get smaller and smaller the closer she gets to 25. After this point, she is now making a 20 Rand profit. So now you can go and look for the places where the more and more profit that she's going to make. Do you see? And this is a really nice way to compare across the two. So you could pair your students up. One can do this calculation and the other can go and look at the difference between the two calculations as well. Michael, you can download the calculator from Maths at Sharp. It is, if you just go to maths@sharp.co.za and scroll across that first big picture screen with the Merry Christmas, press your right arrow key, scroll across, I think it's the third screen, press the download now button, and then you can save it to your desktop. Okay, so that's break-even analysis in a nutshell. I think it's a very nice way to do something like this. Okay, awesome. I'm going to go back to my slides so that I know what I want to do next. You know, it's a crutch. So the next thing to look at, and we're still going to go into table mode, and we're going to look at tariffs. Now with tariffs, again, it's a table, it's a function that you're doing. Okay, so say for example, the cost per minute of a call is 95 cents. So we can put in 0.95, and my X is my number of minutes that I am using. Okay. I'm going to cancel that function because I obviously don't want 40x as my function 2, and leave again those as they are. And you can see 2 minutes will cost me 1 Rand 90, 3 minutes will cost me 2 Rand 85. And they can scroll down the table and look, okay, 10 minutes is going to cost me 9 Rand 50. And again, you can use different calculations as comparisons. So if this one is just 95 cents per minute and 95 cents per minute, and the next one is I pay a fat fee of 100 Rand, but my cost per call is 50 cents, same thing, right? Here I can start to see, okay, it's going to take me a lot of calls or a lot of minutes before this is actually worth my time and worth spending that extra 100 Rand on. And again, you can see my table is unlimited, so I can go for as long as I like without running out of space. I've chosen a very poor example here, I can see. It's slowly catching up, but slowly, so it's going to take me a long time. So just choose your examples wisely when you do this. I'm not going to continue because it's just silly now. So it's over 100 minutes and it's still costing you less. So if you're using, I mean, you can really just go as long as you like. And you can see, it's a really nice way to show your students the difference between different tariff costs as well. All right, so let's look at simple interest now. And for simple interest, let's go back here. Again, I'm going to use my table mode. And what I want to do is I just want to show you the formula, right? So we use 1 plus 5. Let's just use our percentage is 5%. So we're going to divide by 100. Or otherwise, what you can do is convert it to a percentage, whatever makes you happy, times, and my number of years, I'm going to make an X for. Okay, let's start with this one, and we'll just, oopsie, just cancel function 2 equals. So X is now my number of years, and answer is now how much I've earned after a set number of years. So you can see at the point 0, we invested 1,000 Rand into this account. After 1 year at 5% per annum, we've earned 50 Rand. After 2 years, we've earned another 50 Rand, and our total is 1,100. After 3 years, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's simple interest. Yes, Ernest, they don't allow the use of the formula, but it is a nice way to teach simple interest and to show them what's actually happening and why we do it. And it's a good checking mechanism as well. Yes, Pasico, same. So I want to show you now the compound interest plus 5 over 100. Just because it's a really great way to illustrate the difference between the two. So here we go. So after 1 year, they've earned exactly the same amount, but after 2 years, this compound interest has earned an extra 2 Rand 50. And after 3 years, it's earned an extra 7 Rand 63. And after 4 years, it's earned an extra 15 Rand, you see. So here, it's taking the 5% from the previous year, and here it's taking the 5% from the initial year. And you can, because you're not technically substituting into a formula the whole time, what you can ask your students to go and look for, where is it double, where is it triple. So this is a really nice way to explain simple and compound interest before you start doing the exercise. So your exercises, you'd go back here and you'd say, okay, I have 1,000 Rand, and after 1 year, I earned 5%. There we go. Now, if I'm doing simple interest, I'm going to say, what is 5% of 1,000 Rand? Right? It's 50. So after 1 year, I've got 50 Rand. And after 2 years, I've got 1,100 Rand. And after 3 years, 1,150, and so on. So that's simple interest. Whereas here, with compound interest, we can do it the same way. So we're going to say plus 5%, right? Gives me that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep adding 5% to, sorry, wrong button, to my answer. And if I keep saying, oh man, it doesn't work nicely. But you can see what I mean by that. So you can just keep saying plus 5%. So up here would be plus 5%, and so on and so forth. And you'll keep getting the same answers as well. Okay, cool. So that's the finance on the interest side of things, with and without the formulas. The next thing that we want to talk about is tax, and this came up a lot in the request. So I went and Googled and looked for the tax tables for this year, 2021. So if you earn between 1 Rand and 205,900 Rand, you have to pay 18% of tax. Okay, and then there's a rebate and a threshold income, which I haven't put here. And if you go further and further down the table, so Roy says, morning, most of our learners use a Casio calculator. Can we encourage them to buy a Sharp calculator as well? Yes, please, Roy, that would be wonderful. I'll encourage you more at the end of the presentation as well. But yes, it is approved by the department. You can use them in your exam. questions. So there's no problem with this calculator for math students. So here's your table. And what I did is I just went and also found the tax rebates for 2021. So these are the values that I'm now using. Okay. So I have assumed that this person is earning 20,000 Rand per month and they are 30 years old. So they've only got their initial rebates. Okay. So on the calculator, so let's just work through this. So first things we need to know is how much they've earned across the year to work out their monthly tax. So that's 20,000 Rand times 12 gives us 240,000 Rand. Okay, so that value falls between here, this one here. Okay, so what we did is for the first 205,901 Rand, you have to pay 37,062 Rand. Okay, so we need to know what's left over. Oh, there it is, yeah. And we need 26% of the leftovers of 240 minus 205 and 901 Rand. And that gives us 34,099 Rand, which we just did a basic calculation on the calculator. Okay. Now we need to know of that leftover value that we've got. I have substituted it for the wrong bag. Oh, so we have this much to pay plus 26% of 34,099 Rand. So we're going to type in 34 times 26%, like we did with the previous calculations. Here's your answer. And it gives us 8,865 and some cents, which I have written, oh, I haven't written down. I apologize. And then I've taken that value and I've added it to the 37,062 Rand. It's a terrible number. And so my total tax that I should be paying is 45,927 Rand and 74 cents. But now we have a rebate of 14,958 Rand. So what we do is we take the total tax that we owe and we subtract the rebate from it to give us this as our total tax that we owe over the 12-month period. Okay, so if you didn't pay tax every month, you should be putting away money in order to pay this 30,000 or almost 31,000 Rand at the end of the year of the tax year. If, however, you are paying it on a monthly basis, because most monthly earners do that, we divide this total by 12. Okay, and that gives us a monthly payment of 2,580 Rand and 81 cents. Everyone is happy. If you're good, just wave your hands. So the steps are very simple. Fantastic. Just to go through it again. First find out how much you earn per year. Look for your tax bracket. Look for what you are going to owe. Find the difference between the lowest end of your tax bracket and what you are actually earning. Multiply that by the percentage, okay, and add it to the original total tax amount that you need to pay. And then take away your rebate and divide this by 12 to get your monthly payments. Okay. Christine, that is a good question. You are probably right. Let me just look here. Sorry, keep going back. So shouldn't we subtract, Christine is saying, shouldn't we subtract 205 and 900? And if we look at the table, oh yes, sorry, I'm being doof. So you must subtract 205 and 900. Sorry, I'll go and rework this before I send you the presentation. Thanks, Christine, for that catch. Okay. So what happens then if we get a bonus? Okay, so there are two methods to calculate this. Is to add the bonus to your total yearly earnings and then rework out your monthly tax rate. But this only works if we know that we're going to receive the bonus and if we know how much of our bonus we're going to get. So this works if you are receiving a 13th check, for example. So you know exactly what your amount should be for the month and you can add your tax to all across the entire year in order to mitigate that giant tax thing at the end of the year when you get your bonus. Okay, this is the way that SARS will calculate your final tax amount. Okay, so it will take your entire earnings over the entire year and work out what your tax should be. But when you are working at a company, they don't calculate it that way. They calculate the tax as though you've earned that total amount every month. Okay, and then you pay the tax. So you would have to go, say for example, your bonus was 5,000 Rand. You'd have to take 20,000 plus 5,000 and say 25,000. Multiply that by 12 and then do all of the various calculations again. So you will pay more tax because it assumes that you've been earning 25 times 12 the entire year. Hang on, which will give you 25 times 2 is 50 times 6 is 300,000. Okay, so that's a lot higher. And so then your tax will be much higher as well. But you will get that refunded to you in the tax. And luckily, you don't pay that every month. You just pay that once for. So the question here is, why do we subtract pension and to find out how much an employee has to contribute at tax? Okay, so there's two ways. Pension gives you a bonus, so there is another rebate for having a pension amount. Okay, so they don't on my payslip we don't get pension, but they don't subtract that bonus. It's only when you do your refund, your tax refund, do they give you the rebates on top of that. But if you wanted to calculate it yourself, at this stage here where your rebates are, what you should do is add all of the rebates. So your rebate for medical aid, your rebate for your pension, your rebate for being over 65, and so on and so forth. And that's where that comes in as a tax. And then this amount at the bottom will then be lower. And so you'll actually pay less tax monthly. So you can do it two methods. You can choose to take your rebates away and only pay a set monthly fee. In other words, you won't get a tax refund at the end of the year because you'll be paying the minimum amount that you can. Or you can wait and let SARS deduct that rebate for you when you're doing your tax returns from July and do that. But guys, I'm not a financial advisor, so I have a very rough understanding of this. So, hi, Di. Did you have a question, Di? Okay, so that's just all the various bonuses and refunds and rebates, etc. But I didn't find the medical aid rebates, and I think that's something that you just need to be aware of on your side as well. So rebates, when you're doing the calculation, just add any other rebates that you would get to your rebate section of deduction as well. To go back to that pension question, okay, what you can do is you can subtract the pension from your total earnings before you apply the tax to it, and that gives you a tax benefit as well. Okay, fantastic. So you can apply it in that way as well. But I think you need to instruct your students. So if, for example, you're drawing a pension of 3,000 Rand on this 20,000 Rand, what you could then do is say 20,000 minus the 3,000 gives me an earning of 17,000 Rand. And you only pay tax on the 17, which obviously will bring you below, if I think about it, let's go look. So 17 times 12 gives us 204, which takes us below the other tax bracket. And then what you're doing is you're only paying, let's go back and check. Oh man, I'm going the wrong direction. Sorry, guys. So here, it's below the 205,000. So you only pay 18% of your income. Okay, so here, you'd only pay 18% of the 17,000 per month. So you'd only pay 3,000 Rand instead. So if we look at the difference, let's go see how much of a difference that makes. Okay, sorry, I didn't subtract your rebates. So you'd have to do the whole rebate process and then come back and work it out. And it'll probably be, well, we can divide 14 by 14,958 divided by 12, because that would be your monthly rebate, is 1,246. So we can say 3,000 minus, I'm sorry, I forgot the answer here. Oh, you know what we can do? We can just say answer. So then your tax is 1,700. So that gives you quite a sizable difference between the two. And that makes it worth doing it, deducting your pension before you pay the tax, especially if you want more money at the end of every month instead of getting it in one big chunk from your refund as well. All right, so same scenario, but now with VAT. So you have 15% VAT. So say, for example, the cost of a calculator is 120 Rand, and then you need to add VAT, we say plus 15%. And that will give us 138 Rand. So your total price, including your VAT, is 138. If we want to work out a price, so say our price is 149 Rand 99, and we want to know what it was before that, we can say 115 second function 1, and that will give us 130 Rand and 43 cents. Okay. Sorry, I'm frowning because I use different values. I'm like, no, wait, that doesn't work out, but it does. So that's just the difference. Now, the other nice thing that you can do here, I don't want to share this just yet, is to explore present value annuities with your students. And again, they would only see this formula if you give it to them and they have to substitute in. That's the only time I've ever seen it in a math lit textbook. Okay, so what I wanted to show you is actually just an exercise that we did with the math students on present value annuities, but it's really a nice exercise to do with your math lit students as well, and to do with budgeting and seeing what you can actually borrow and what you can't borrow. So I'm going to go back to my table function, and what I'm going to do is in my present value annuity, instead of putting a payment down that I would be paying into it, I'm actually just going to substitute an X instead. And I'm going to say 1 minus bracket 1 plus. And then let's call the rate that we're borrowing 10%. So it's 10 over 100. And it's compounded monthly, so it's times 12. Close our brackets to the power of, and let's say we borrow it, it's a car. So we're borrowing it over 5 years, and it's compounded monthly. And close that bracket, and then it's all over the interest rates again, which is compounded monthly. Again, this formula is not something that they have to learn off by heart, but they do have to know how to substitute. And what I would do with your math lit learners is actually change this calculation. So I would have 0.1 divided by 12 to make it easier to type in and not so complicated as well. Okay, let's ignore function 2. For your step, let me just show you. So here, what it's actually telling me is if I borrow 1 Rand, I can borrow 47 Rand and 7 cents over 5 years. And if I can pay back 2 Rand per month, then I can borrow 94 Rand and 13 cents. And if I borrow 3 Rand, okay, so it's going to take me a long time to get to where I want. So what I want to do is I'm going to change my step to jump in hundreds. So this is 100 Rand jump, right? In other words, if I can pay back 100 Rand per month, then I can borrow 4,706 Rand and 53 cents, and so on and so forth. So say, for example, your budget is 1,000 Rand a month, okay? Then we can go look for 1,000 Rand and we can see, okay, I can borrow 47,000 Rand approximately. And if my budget is 1,500 Rand, I can borrow 70,000, nearly 600 Rand a month, okay? And so on. And you can see the more money that you borrow, the bigger the difference is between the two, between the hundreds, okay? So that's just a really nice exercise to show them, okay, what can I borrow versus how much I would have to pay every day. And I just wanted to include that because sometimes we don't think about these things, but we do teach annuities in grade 12, even though they don't have to know the formula, they still need to understand the concept of it and what we're actually doing. So this is a nice way to show them what that actually means. The last thing in finance, I think, is the hire purchase. And so this is when you want to buy something that's more expensive and you pay it off monthly. But instead of using the present value annuity, we use our simple interest. So here is an example that I took out of one of the worksheets that we've created. Okay, so she wants to purchase a lounge suite from House and Home, and here's the picture. So the House and Home lounge suite is 15,000 Rand basically. Okay, so the first question is, if she pays a 15% deposit, how much will she have to take out a hire purchase loan for? So firstly, we need to calculate the 15% deposit, which we can do by just multiplying by 15%. Sure, I use 15% a lot. Okay, so she's going to pay a deposit of basically 2,250 approximately, but we'll use the actual value in our calculations. So what does she actually need to take a loan out for? Well, that's going to be 14,999 Rand minus the 2,249 Rand and 85 cents that she pays. So this is just a quick way to do this calculation, is just to take your initial value and subtract 15% from it, as we saw when we did the percentages example. Okay. Now, House and Home charges her an exorbitant amount of 22% interest per year with the loan payable over 3 years. And I see now I've put the formula in. So what we would actually need to do to calculate this is, instead of using the formula, we would need to work out the interest per year and then come back. So if we have 12,749 Rand and 15 cents, and it's times 20, okay, so we're going to add 22%. Oh, actually, let's just find out what 22% is. So times 22%. So it's 2,804 Rand and 81 cents. Okay, and there's two ways to calculate this now. So what we can do is we can just add this to that value and then keep adding it to the same value. Or we can multiply it by 3, because there's 3 years equals, and then add it to our initial value, which should give us, hopefully, if we're smart, the same answer. Is it 21,163? Let's just go look and see. 21,163 and 59 cents. Yes. Ta-da! Okay. It's always nice to know that you can do things in 2 different ways. Okay, so I will change that so that it works out better. She also has to pay a monthly insurance of, did we answer the question? Yes, so that's the total amount she'll pay over 3 years. She also has to pay a monthly insurance of 29 Rand and an admin fee of 13 Rand. How much will she have to pay for an entire month? So firstly, we need to take this answer that we found and work out how much she will pay monthly on just that interest, or just on that amount that she's borrowed. So firstly, 3 years times 12 is 36 months. And then we take that answer that we just found now and we divide it by the 36 months. And that will give us our monthly repayments of 587 Rand and 88 cents when we round off. Okay. From there, we add our insurance and our admin fees, and it gives us a total of 629 Rand and 88 cents. That's just an example question. How much more is Mandisa spending because she bought the lounge suite on hire purchase than paying the cash price? So what we want to know is she's paying a total of 629 Rand and 88 cents over 36 months. So we just take that value, and you'll see I just used the answer because that was the previous answer's value. And we multiply it by 36, and we get a total of 22,000 Rand, 675 Rand and 59 cents. That's a lot of money for a lounge suite. And then how much more means we need to subtract the original price from the price that we pay at the end. Now, don't forget that you also need to include the deposit on that amount. So she's paying 2,249 Rand and 85 plus the 22,000 Rand. and then we subtract the original price. So she's paying an extra almost 10,000 Rand just on higher purchase interest and fees, which is a crazy amount if you think about it. So the rule of the story, the moral of the story is rather save your 600 Rand over the 3 years and then go and buy a piece of lounge suite, and you will save yourself a whole bunch of money. All right, cool. So I'm going to move over now to conversions. Is everyone good? You're still happy? Your coffee is cold. I'm sorry. Great, fantastic. So the next thing that I want to show you, and that comes into the measurement thing, is your wonderful, thanks guys. I'm glad you're still awake. So the next thing to do is actually to look at conversions between different years. And I know math lit students often struggle with this type of question. So let's say, for example, we have 50 ounces and we want to know how many grams 50 ounces is. Okay, so to do that, we're going to use our magical alpha button and we're going to look for the conversion, which is on 5. And we're just going to scroll down the screen, the table. So you'll see you have 44 different versions that you can convert between. We'll use mostly these ones in the beginning, the miles to kilometers, nautical miles, acres to meters squared to acres. There we go. Ounces to grams. So that's 13. So all we do is tell the calculator we want the ratio 13, or the conversion constant 13, and we press equals, and that gives us 1,417 and 40,4786 grams. Okay. Oh, wonderful, Joseph. Good stuff. Okay, so that's basically how conversions work. From there, I see there's another question. Oh, yay. Thanks, Fazika. I'm glad you like our conversions. So from there, the next type of question that we get is the time questions. And these make children, thanks, Di. These make children cry. So let's do the various ways that you can use your calculator to do time conversions. Okay. So let's say we have 470 minutes and we want to know how many hours we have. Okay, so what we do is we put a 0 in our hours placeholder. We're going to use this DMS button, which means degrees, minutes, and seconds, but it has the same number system as sexagesimal, which is your hours, minutes, and seconds. So we just put into our minute slot the 470 minutes, and we say equals, and it gives us 7 hours and 50 minutes. But we wanted it in hours, so we're just going to convert it into whole number notation, and that gives us 7 hours and 5/6. If you want it as a decimal, just change it as 8.33333. The next type of question we get is how long does it take me to go somewhere? So the other day we drove to Vryheid, which is, what is it, 400 and something, 413 Ks, and we did an average speed of, let's call it 109 kilometers an hour. We didn't, because the roads are not fantastic, but anyway. So that gives us 3 hours and something, right? 3 hours, and I'm going to guess between 45 and 50 minutes, but you know. So what we can do is just change again the notation. So second function DMS, and that gives us 3 hours and 47 minutes and 20,367 seconds. So that's a very nice one for those types of questions. The last type of question we get is the Susie train station question. So Susie gets on the train at 10:15. She gets off at 12:30. How long was she on the train for? So we know that it is 12:30. We always take the later time first, minus 9:45 for 10:15, and we say equals, and it will give us 2 hours, 45 minutes, and 0 seconds. You can, of course, add seconds into this calculation, but for math lit students, I don't think it's absolutely necessary. And then, of course, again, we can convert it into whole numbers, so 2,75 or 2 3/4 of an hour. Cool, so that's all the time functions. Here's stats. I just want to briefly show you all of the stats quickly. I know we're hitting on an hour, I did not expect us to take this long, but I think we had some great finance questions, so that's awesome. So from here, we're going to say mode and 1 for stats, and we are just going to use this very first one that says 0 for single data. Okay, and just type in some values into your table. I'm just making them up. Oopsie, I've done that already. Let's do it the other way. Cool. Okay, so there's all of your different values. Once you've done typing them in, you just press change. So you can go back to your table. Oh, goodness. So look here. This one looks very strange, and I think I typed in the wrong value. It should have been 41. So what I can do is just highlight what I want to change using my arrow keys. Press the value that I want to change it to and press equals, and it will just substitute it in straight away. Okay, so once we're done with that, we can say change, and then it's very, very easy. We say alpha and 8 for stat. You'll see it says stat above 8, and then just 0, and that will give us 9 observations, which we typed in. Our average is 60,666. We don't do standard deviation, I don't think. There's your sum of x, so they can show all of their working out steps. And then, of course, your minimum, your median, quartiles, and your maximum as well. Okay, so that's very basic. That's all you actually need to know on how to do stats on this calculator. Now, see, there is a question that says, with the conversion, how can you convert 26,000 hours to number of years? So with that question, you actually need to know your values. So you need to know 26,000 hours, first convert it into days. So that would be how many hours in a day is 24 and equals, and then how many years, so how many days in a year is 365 divided by 365, because there's too many steps in between. So it's almost 3 years that you have 26,000 hours for. So it's 2,96 years. Okay. Unfortunately, there's not as many conversions. It's more the direct conversion. So miles to kilometers, meters to, you know, the ones imperial to metric and so on and so forth. So if you go and look on your conversion, you can see all of the various options that you do have. Pounds to kilograms, degrees Fahrenheit to degrees Celsius, liters to gallons. So you can see a lot of it is the metric and imperial calculation conversions. Joules to calories. Wait, you ever did that one? Work to horsepower, something else. And now we're going into places I don't know and feel uncomfortable in. Okay, so that's just the thing. What you do also have in your math function here is the ability to convert hours to seconds and hours to minutes. So what you can do, for example, is if I have 60 hours and I want to know how many seconds, then I can say math and I choose 1, and that will give me 216,000 seconds. So that's just the various conversions that you can do. Unfortunately, for that more advanced type of questions, your students do actually need to know the difference between the two and how to get to that point. All right, the last thing that I want to show you today is the probability. So we are in normal mode, so that's great. What you have on your calculator is a random function. So random, the very first one, that's 0, gives us random decimals between 0 and 1 to 3 decimal places. And that's really nice if you want to get your students to practice rounding off to 1 decimal and 2 decimal places. Your R dice function works exactly like a dice. It gives you values between 1 and 6. Your coin gives you values between 0 and 1. So you would just need to tell your students, okay, assume that 0 means heads and 1 means tails, or the other way around, whatever makes you happy. Then the random integer function is really, really nice. So I often play the lottery with students when I see them. I miss them. I haven't seen them in long. So what I would do is get them all to write down their lottery numbers, any numbers between 1 and 52, 6 numbers. So 6 numbers between 1 and 52, write them down on a piece of paper and get them to switch them with their friends. Once they've done that, I will then type in 1 and 52 on my calculator. And all I do is press equals, and it will randomly generate numbers between 1 and 52. So if you're doing a random lottery raffle, you can also put in 1 and however many raffle tickets you've sold, and you can just do that as a random number. And then, of course, just click through. It will just give you random numbers like that. All right. Any other questions? You're all dying for a cup of coffee. Awesome. Okay, fantastic.